Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today we're going to talk about some of the series that I'm hoping maybe to finish in 2019. So I am a notorious series abandoner. I don't know if I'd say abandoner, I just tend to I can't read series back to back, basically. It just I don't know, there's something about reading the same author back to back to back to back just completely ruins it. I tell the story kind of a lot on this channel, but essentially when I was in high school I was obsessed with the Lord of the Rings movies. So the first one came out, I don't know, maybe when I was a freshman in high school, and I read Fellowship of the Ring basically in a night because I was so obsessed with it. Then I picked up The Two Towers immediately afterwards, didn't register a single word on the page even though I read the entire book, and then gave up on Return of the King 20 pages in and abandoned the series for about 10 years. So I've only really read Lord of the Rings once because it was after I graduated from university, well after I graduated from university, that I actually finished it. So ever since then I've been really overly cautious about not reading authors back to back, and I've kind of tested it a little bit, and it's just not something that I can do. So all of these books are books that I've started, whether in 2018 or earlier, and just not finished. But I really want to become someone who completes series so that I can get some closure, because my god, I have so many just series that are just lingering, and I have no idea what happens, and it's time to finish some of these up. So we'll start off with a series that I think is fairly popular, at least on UK BookTube. This is the Dark Gifts trilogy by Vic James. So we have Gilded Cage as our first one, Tarnished City, and Bright Ruin. I've read the first two, I read them this year, and I wasn't hugely sold on the first one, but it has an amazing ending, and it has one of my favorite, sort of plot twists ever. It's so good. So I decided to read the second one, and I really love the second one. It just keeps getting better and better, more and more messed up. And I haven't read the third one yet, even though the second one ends on quite the cliffhanger. Yeah, a lot of stuff happens. And I just never really got around to finishing these up. I think I read Tarnished City maybe in October, so it's been a few months, and it's high time I get to Bright Ruin. If you don't know what these books are about, they're kind of they're sort of set in present day Britain. They're a fantasy series, but they're set in kind of like a off-kilter version of modern Britain. So the aristocratic class has magic power, something that they call the skill, and regular people have to serve as slaves for the aristocrats for 10 years of their lives. So this follows a particular family, and they have 3 children, and we really focus on the elder 2. There is Luke, who is the son, and Abby, who is one of the daughters, and they have a younger daughter named Daisy. And these books are really good. The problem with the first one was that I was much more invested in the sort of horrible aristocrats than I was in this family. However, the stakes just get so incredibly high for this family and for the children, and it gets so incredibly good. If you like authors who aren't afraid to break your heart, highly recommended. So we're jumping from fantasy to science fiction. This next series is one that I read the first of, I think probably in 2016, and recommended to Scottish Fiancé because it's sci-fi and he likes sci-fi, and then he read all of them, and I've only read the first 2, and I can tell he's itching to talk about these books. And when I mentioned I was making this video, he demanded I add these. Fair enough. I have The Expanse on my list next. This is by James S.A. Corey. We have Leviathan Wakes and Caliban's War. Those are the first 2. Those are the ones that I've read. We have Abaddon's Gate, and we have Cibola Burn next. I believe there's 7 books out, so this isn't even all of them. I think it's going to be a 10-book series. So think mankind spread out in the solar system. We have people who are from the inner planets, so Earth and Mars, and we have people in the asteroid belt who are called Belters. Makes enough sense. It's gotten to the point where Belters look quite physically different from people who are from the inner planets because of gravity. So Belters are quite tall and long-limbed, and there's a lot of tension between the two. So in this very first book, a ship gets blown up, a mining ship, and it kind of signals the very start of what could be a devastating war. However, there is also an alien threat that has been discovered. It's really the simplest way to kind of talk about these. It gets quite sprawling, quite epic. I really love these books. I feel like maybe the best way to describe them is they're almost like blockbuster films of sci-fi novels. They're super fun, super engaging, they're so fast-paced, and they're just like so incredibly engaging. I love them. They're so much fun to read. Just for whatever reason, they kind of fell off my radar very briefly, but I have books 3 and 4, and it's easy enough to get the rest of them. I need to just do it. I need to just hop back in, but I think what I need is like an in-depth guide to what happened in the first 2 books, because it has been a little while. Right, what do we got next? Oh god, okay. Oh no. The next book is one that I've been genuinely trying to read for years. However, the second book in the trilogy, like, I think might have destroyed a part of my soul. Yeah. This is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. So I really liked the first book in this trilogy. Then I got to the second, which is fantastic. But it hurts. It hurts so much. It's just like you have probably the worst, most hateful villain ever of all time. You have one of the most brutal endings. And it's not like, I don't know, I feel like more brutal things have happened. So like, I don't know, like the Red Wedding is, you know, more difficult than this. But if you've read this, you probably have a good idea of what I'm talking about. Just the way that Royal Assassin, the second book, ends. It's been 6 years? 5 or 6 years since I've read it, and I still don't know if I can bring myself to read this book. So if you don't know, this series kind of goes in trilogies. This is the first trilogy, the next is The Live Ship Traders, which I'm so desperate to read, but I want to finish this first. We'll get there one day. This book follows a boy named Fitz, and Fitz is the bastard son of Prince Chivalry, and he lives a very lonely existence, but he has this magic. He can connect with animals, he can communicate with animals, however, it's a very dangerous and despised magic. And he sort of is brought into the court to become the apprentice to the court assassin. The first book is called Assassin's Apprentice. You can kind of see a theme with the titles here. And I thought the first book was a little bit tougher to get into, but I ended up really liking it by the end. I loved the second one, except that ending is so hard, and I just really want to go ahead and finish this off. I really like the characters. It's a very quite dark series, and it's quite brutal, but I really enjoy this, and some of the characters are just absolutely wonderful. Night Eyes? Going from one Grimm series to another, the next is not necessarily a series, it's a collection of standalones that take place in the same world that I want to finish up. These are Joe Abercrombie's First Law world books. So, the First Law trilogy is amazing, and it's one of my all-time favorite fantasy series ever, and it's one that I've actually finished. It's so good. You guys should totally read it. He wrote that trilogy, and then he wrote 3 standalone novels that take place in that world. So the first one is called Best Served Cold, which is amazing, and that's the only one of the standalones that I've read. So The Heroes is the next one, and I need to read this quite badly because it's generally considered to be the best one, even though I think that all of his books are absolutely amazing. And then I also have a collection of short stories. There's also a book called Red Country that I don't own yet. That's the 3rd standalone. Basically, I have a lot of work to do on Joe Abercrombie. I love these books so much, and one of the reasons is that this is like grimdark to me as it should be done. It's so bleak, and it's super violent, but it's all violence with a purpose, and I just love the characters. I love the trope inversions. I love everything about these books, and Best Served Cold is genuinely one of the best books that I've ever read, with one of the best female characters that I've ever read, and one of the most tragic story arcs that I've ever read. You know exactly what that is if you've read these. So I really need to read The Heroes. The Heroes, I've been meaning to read this forever, and actually I started this I think when we moved down to Oxford. So this, I read the first maybe 100 pages or so in 2017, but just the moving process don't really leave a lot of time for reading, so I ended up setting it aside and I just never picked it back up again. But this is all about the Northmen, who are my favorite characters. Think kind of Wildling-esque if you've read Game of Thrones, and they're just so good. These books are so good. I have no reason to have not finished these. I just haven't ever gotten around to it. Next up, I have another trilogy that I would like to finish, And thank goodness that YA authors seem to be writing in trilogies lately because it's saving me a lot of time. I have The Diviners by Libba Bray. So we have The Diviners, which I have read, then we have Lair of Dreams, and Before the Devil Breaks You. So these are insanely popular, I think, sort of in the YA book community, and I had heard so many good things about The Diviners, and I ended up picking it up. I think it was the first book that I read this year, and I liked it. I didn't love it. I loved the setting, and I liked the characters, but something about it didn't just necessarily click with me. So I obviously liked it enough to have bought the next two based on what I thought of the first one. So I'd like to get to these at some point, and I think these are definitely going to be a priority, because although they're quite long, they're finished for now, and I think it took so long for her to write this third one, I don't have to worry about a new release anytime soon. The Diviners follows a girl named Evie, and she lives in Prohibition-era America, and she is the daughter of two people of the temperance movement, and she's quite the party girl. So after a particularly bad incident, they send her to New York City to live with her kind of strange uncle who owns a sort of museum of paranormal artifacts. Now, Evie has this little bit of a secret because she can read objects. Basically, she can touch an object, and if it's personal enough, she can see memories and sort of know people's secrets. So she learns about a killer who is stalking New York City, and she decides she's going to try to track this person down. That's kind of what these are about, but I feel like they're also about so much more than that, because there are these amazing characters. There's a ton of characters, so many, I don't think I could rattle through all of them right now, but there are a fair few that really stand out, and I know that in the second one of those characters who I really love is going to kind of get the starring role. So I'm very excited to read these. I need to just do it. I own all of them, which is not necessarily the case with all of these books, and even though I really didn't sort of love The Diviners as much as I thought I would, I think it was probably the most fun I'd had reading in a long time when I read that book. So I think that these are going to be really, really great. The next series I would like to finish in 2019 is one that I've been kind of avoiding for a while because these books have kind of a special place in my heart. This is the Rebel of the Sands trilogy by Elwyn Hamilton. So I love these books because Rebel of the Sands is the book that really got me to read YA. I've read YA before, but nothing really stuck with me in the way that Rebel of the Sands did. So I have read these first two, but Hero at the Fall, which is the final book in the trilogy, I have not touched yet. And I don't usually get that kind of sentimental, I don't want the series to end feeling, but I kind of don't want the series to end. In short, these books are about a girl named Amani, and Amani is a gunslinger in this sort of fantasy Middle East, and she ends up joining a rebellion against the Sultan of the land, and things get kind of crazy from there. I love these books, and I really particularly loved the second one. I thought the second one was excellent, and it was a really great way of changing up a story without tearing away a lot of the things that make the story great. If you've read it, you know how it changes and everything. I won't go into that now. But the third one, I really need to finish because the second one ends with this great cliffhanger and everything is going to change. I guess I'm not just quite ready for that yet, so I've been putting it off, but this one I would really like to finish up. I don't know, I really love these, and I'm not quite ready for them to be over yet, but I think the time has come. It's been almost a year. The last series that I want to finish in 2019 might be a little bit ambitious, because this is kind of like the granddaddy series to end them all. I want to finish Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. So you might see here, if you know your Wheel of Time, that I've got books 10 and 11 here. I've got Crossroads of Twilight and Knife of Dreams. I've read the first 9, and there are 14 books in this series, not including the prequel, and I just need to do this. I've been reading the series since 2011, which is slightly ridiculous. Maybe 2010. I've been reading it for a really long time, and it's time to wrap this up. The problem with this, if, again, you know your Wheel of Time, is that I'm on Crossroads of Twilight, and Crossroads of Twilight is generally considered the worst book in the series. So if you've read Game of Thrones, if you've read the whole Song of Ice and Fire series, think of this as like the Feast for Crows of Wheel of Time, but slower. Much slower. I've started this, so you can see. I got about 100 pages into this book earlier this year, and I just couldn't quite do it. I need to just buckle down and read these. The nice thing about Wheel of Time, and the reason that I can have read them over the past, 7, 8 years, is the fact that there is an amazing website called Encyclopedia WOT. I can link it down below if you're interested, that does chapter by chapter summaries of every single book, plus footnotes. It's amazing. And basically what I was planning on doing was going to books 8 and 9 and rereading everything that happens in those so I can get completely back into the world and then just blast through Crossroads of Twilight so I can get to Knife of Dreams, which is the last book that Robert Jordan himself wrote because Brandon Sanderson finished the series. I love Brandon Sanderson and I want to read his Wheel of Time books. We'll get there eventually. That is it. Those are a bunch of series that I would like to finish in 2019. I want to be a series completer. That is my goal. And I'm going to try to work on my whole thing about not being able to read a series back to back, because that's really kind of hindering my process for becoming a series completionist. It's hard. So in the comments below, let me know if you've read any of these books, if you've read any of these series, also any series that you want to finish in 2019. If you're like me and you just really struggle to read authors back to back, I would love to chat with you. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.